This is Resonance, a podcast for leaders that unpacks the power of song, silence, and strategy.
We believe that great leadership begins with deep listening, not just to others, but to the still small voice within.
It's not just about being a successful leader, it's about being soulfully aligned as well.
In a world moving fast, Resonance invites you to pause and reconnect with purpose, people, and possibility.
We'll dive into some cool stories, celebrate with friends, and dig deep into the music too. 'Cause song has a way of saying what words cannot alone.
So whether you're leading a business, a team, or just trying to lead your own life with more meaning, this is Resonance.
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 Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Resonance. I'm Mike Farrell, and I'm with my comrades here, Steve Azar and Randy Harrington, for another exciting episode of Resonance, the podcast. And the timing is just right for this one, because in this episode today, we will be airing this the day after Lent starts. So it'll be the Thursday after Ash Wednesday. And so we thought maybe we'd spend a little time today talking a little bit about Lent, and especially about what leaders can learn from Lent. And so we're going to really
As opposed to what leaders can learn from Fat Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly.
A very different.
There
don't
you
mind
go.
me chiming in as well. I like a good Fat Tuesday.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a good Fat Tuesday. So we're going to start talking a little bit today about this idea of Lent, and maybe some things that we do, maybe some things that we've seen others do, but especially how it relates to leaders, because I think leaders are a really important aspect of this. I attended an event on Ash Wednesday morning with a lot of leaders, and so a lot of the conversation was about what they were going to do as leaders through Lent. And so I thought it might be a good time to have that conversation, especially since we're going to be a day into it here. So, Steve, why don't we? I'm going to kick it over to you. Tell me a little bit about what you do at Lent, or your Lenten journey. Let's put it that way.
It's always been a little different, but let's back up for a second. Let's talk about we're just getting to the point where most people have failed on their New Year's resolutions.
Exactly.
Which we call the revolution, right? New Year's revolution. And until you take it to that revolting stage, you're never going to finish the year out. So let me just say that. Second of all, so it talks about sacrifice, right? New Year's resolutions or sacrifice, or doing things, not just giving things up, but doing positive things that can help you, help people around you, help your work, help your personal life, help your relationships with your friends and family and all those things. You try to live up to that, and then you get back into the grind. I think Lent's the perfect timing. Obviously, being Catholic, the two of the three here, Mike, you and me, and we understand that you got to sort of put up. And as you get older and you have kids, you're responsible for being like your parents and trying to do a really good job of being diligent and sticking to those Lenten promises that you've made and the sacrifice that you need to show that you're capable of doing, and the importance of it and the significance of it as Catholics, of course. Kevin James, by the way, a friend of ours who is a devout Catholic, great actor, great guy, he gave up eating for 41 days. 41 days he made it.
Wow.
I think he drank vinegar water and whatever, and he actually pulled it off. That's why you've seen a lot of weight loss and everything. It wasn't from the shot. It was from him doing this sacrifice, and he pulled it off. He survived it. And I'm thinking, how is that possible, So I think it's important, Gwen and I, my wife Gwen and I, for folks that don't know my wife's name, she's already brought it up multiple times. She'd like us to go to church one day a week, besides the weekend, besides Saturday night, Sunday. Make that effort, she said. And of course I said, I've got to get up early then and work out, and then I got to do my hair, and she goes, are you kidding me? I said, I just can't throw my hair up and put glasses. I got a lot of hair. And so she laughed at me. That's the worst excuse I've ever heard in my entire life. So I tried, but it didn't work. My parents went to church every day of their life that I recall, that, ever since I could remember as far back. And obviously you go through college and you go through times and I had a lot of excuses about not going to mass or during my I was on the road, or I'm tired, it's been a long stretch and all that. But I had the ultimate in Catholic guilt. It was just being around my parents. I just felt like it was the worst thing I could have ever done. So a while back, a number of years ago, even when we were on the road, Gwen and I decided we're going to find a church. And so we're going to do that. And it's been really self-rewarding for both of us. I got to tell you, making that effort, seeing all these beautiful churches, getting to get here, priests from all over tell, it's almost like they're in a competition to us because that priest is really good at communicating. It's amazing. And so we're doing that. So we're going to try once a week besides the weekend. So we're going to do that. I'm going to have to deal with getting my hair ready. It's not a good thing. It's not easy. It's not easy, guys. Come on. I got a lot of hair and I have to make an effort, and I'm not going to go to church, not feel the good Lord's going to know that I made an effort. So anyway, I mess with her there, but no matter what I lose with Gwen, she's going to get what she wants. But I really think that I think about the sacrifice. When you're growing up, you give up candy.
Yep.
And you can't wait till Saturday night at midnight, Sunday morning at 12 a.m., and you're just wearing it out. It's interesting as you grow older, like I said before, the commitment and the example you need to lead. But I love the fact that we come out of New Year's and we get to Lent this quick. And I think it can be an affirmation of some of the things that failed already in the first 6 weeks, or 8 weeks of the year, because you get back in routine.
Right.
So that's always the juggle. But Lent's a quick reminder of, oh, by the way, look what you failed at, or look what you're doing well at.
Right.
And I also think it's not about giving up stuff as much as it's about figuring out what you can do positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that you say that, because I remember a spiritual director told me several years ago, it isn't necessarily about what you give up. Sacrifice can also be about what you do that you weren't doing. And so I look at it that way. When I go through my Lenten journey, I try and add things that I'm not doing versus subtract things. And
Right.
I think that's an interesting way to look at, a lot of people look at Lent and say, I'm going to give up alcohol or candy, or, I'm going to drop 50 pounds or whatever the case may be, and I do addition versus subtraction.
Can I ask you something before we get to Randy real quick?
Yeah.
I want to ask Mike, where did that come from, that our growing up, it was always about, what are you going to give up? I never heard the other side of it until I grew up. Was I not paying attention? Or was I felt like the ultimate sacrifice was that, or maybe our parents and teachers and going to Catholic school, maybe they realized, let's just get you giving up stuff rather than starting to add to the equation. I wonder at what point it became both options.
Well, I think if you look at the readings on Ash Wednesday, it talks about giving up stuff, and from that perspective. And so I think that, a lot of it comes from that. A lot of it comes from that teaching. But I think it's also, as many things in the Bible, you can interpret it in different ways, and I think that there's also a way to look at that to say sacrifice can also be about doing something versus losing something, and so I think that, and certainly we all, I had the same thing when I was growing up. I mean, you had to give up something, and my mom would keep track of it on the wall, and say, okay, how are we doing? But yeah, I think, and obviously, many, many years later, I figured out that there's another way to look at this, and it's not just, giving up something.
I believe that almsgiving is a canonical part of Lent.
It is.
Right. Yep. So there is something to be said about what you do or donate or provide, as well as prayer. Right. So prayer is a big part of it. So it's not about just giving up stuff, as I understand it. But yes, I think it's a beautiful thing. To me, a non-Catholic, I've always, of all of the Christian holidays, Easter is the one that really gets a hold of me the most. And I think I understand the ideation of Christmas and such, but Easter is the Christian payoff. That's the Mac Daddy right there. That stuff is really where it's at. And so I've always appreciated this sense of preparation, this austerity of preparation that goes into the Easter celebrations. So I guess what I would do to contextualize what we're talking about in a slightly more secular, maybe even business way, is to say, we as people, as individuals need to have the capacity to be uncomfortable and to put ourselves into periods of discomfort. First, there's a wonderful little subgroup out there in the interwebs, and they have the philosophy of seek discomfort. And these are typically young people who go and they try to, they're not doing stupid things, but they're going to go and put themselves into positions that are challenging for them.
Sure.
Going be colder or hotter, whatever it is. But I think that we become so inured to discomfort that even small amounts, I mean, just if you travel anywhere, you know that it doesn't take much for the American traveler to go, well, this is fun. Even though airplanes are in fact terrible, I will grant them that. That is really isn't acceptable. But the Lenten experience of just committing to and giving up something in and of itself is an important disciplinary framework for your brain that can really help. It changes your brain. When you have the discipline to do that and you can stay with it, you develop a different set of communication patterns in your neurology. So it's a good thing. Most people I know that are Catholic, though, will give up something that technically you're supposed to give up something you love.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Something that's going to take effort.
Right.
That's right.
You know,
Yep.
I would give up fishing, for example, because I hate fishing. So that'd be no problem. But the idea, though, is that you are going to give up something that you really, really care about. And so let's zoom in on that just a little bit. I mean, it's a balance thing, isn't it? Right. I mean, it's like you got to, because you have to be able to say, I can give that up, but can I really 40 days too? We're talking.
Right.
40 days.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a challenge. There's no question that, but I think the interesting thing about it, and I think the one thing that a lot of people don't think about is the whole discernment of deciding what it is you're going to do.
Yes, that's where I'm at.
That's the piece that you don't hear. Well, how did you decide that that's what you were going to do? It wasn't just some knee-jerk reaction that said, well, for me, I'm going to give up cheeseburgers. Well, that'll practically kill me. So,
That'll kill us all.
Yeah. But I mean, it really, how did you come to that decision? Did you sit with it? Did you pray with it? Did you reflect on it? What were the decision? And I think that brings up a great point as we kind of make the bridge over to business and leadership. I think the cool thing about Lent is it allows us to get that reset and be able to make that reflection to say, okay, where are we? How are we doing things? I love the Benedictine piece of this because Benedict talks about the rhythm. It's the rhythm of the Lenten journey and all of the things that happen. So and especially, I mean, our last couple of conversations have been over this whole idea of body world and all the crazy chaos that's going on. Lent gives us a great time to stop and reflect and discern what it is that's going on, not only in our lives, but in our work. What is it that we can do? What kind of rhythm can we build that allows us? And I know we've talked about rhythm on the show before. What kind of rhythm can we build that allows us to continue to move forward only in maybe a more subdued manner than what we do the rest of the year?
Well, let me say this, that's fantastic. I think that as I've gotten a little older and thought about Lent a little more, I used to not prepare for it all. You talked about, you pray over it, you spend some time with it to really make some sacrifices or some positives and changes in your life that are actually going to take real effort and sacrifice, right? So before, and when I was younger, it was just the same thing every year. I just went to it. It's my go-to, right? So now it means a whole lot more to me. But let me just say this. I've had Jewish and Christian couples where my Jewish friend, or even some people that are very non-religious in situations, not a truckload of them, but I can remember a handful of them in the last probably 10 years of my life, where we were talking about Lent and it came up and we just happened to be together in a group and all that they both did, even if they weren't Catholic, or even if they didn't celebrate Lent, or even if they were, the partner that wasn't a Christian or a partner that wasn't whatever, took Lent pretty like it was a moment that they wanted to share together.
Yeah.
Right.
What was interesting to me, I said, you don't have to do it. And they go, yeah, I want to do it.
Right.
And that was really, I was curious about what y'all think about that, when it being such such a Christian thing, such a Catholic thing, right?
Right.
I think
it more?
the practice is certainly canonized in that way. But I think that the practice of austerities is a universal kind of thing. And it allows a person to really reflect on the absence of something is a whole different way to look at the world. And one of the
Right.
things that I trip on a lot in a good way is, if to the degree that I have a word called glasses, I immediately create the condition of no glasses. So I have a symbol for the word glasses. And the minute I can say these are glasses, then I can say I don't have glasses. So to the degree that I have something, not having something becomes a necessary condition. And the same thing, life and death are there too, right? So to the degree that I am alive, my life is at some level defined by the potentiality of the necessary potentiality of death. So these things are in this weird balance. And I think it's natural for people to want to understand that and play with it a little bit. I'm reminded of my Navy SEAL friends who would talk about the training days that they dreaded the most were the days where the phrase appreciation would be included. So it would be swim fin appreciation day. And what that meant was you're not going to use your swim fins today. So that means you're going to be out there swimming with no fins. So you're going to really appreciate those fins when you get them back. And so there's something about giving up something that really changes the way you think of and experience the world around you. And that's super important. I think the other thing that's going on, particularly with Lent, is that you are trying to emulate or become closer to the tribulations of Christ prior to the crucifixion.
Right.
Is that a true story, Mike?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So there is this empathetic suffering, of course, nowhere near what Jesus went through, but giving up your chocolate is probably not the same as what Jesus went through. But the point is still there. The symbology of it is
Right.
still there.
Exactly. And that's what it is.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
you are trying to connect with and empathize with those people who have less or to have less. And so it becomes about being stoic and disciplined. And this is one of the things that I guess I want to kick back over to you guys. It turns out to be, I think, one of the most interesting long-term public Christian meditations, because it is 40 days that ultimately ends up being just between you and yourself and God.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right? I mean, maybe your mom caught you eating chocolate when you shouldn't be eating chocolate or whatever, but you get my point. It's really, ultimately, it is a movement that is exclusively internal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think it's cool.
Right. Right. I love that. And that's the truth. It is about you and your relationship with God in the end. You know, you guys got me thinking. I think in the days when I was always on my tour bus and we were there as a family on the bus, with my players, my bandmates, especially as close as we became, it would have been interesting during Lent. I mean, you know, we'd find a church and get our ashes and stuff, and they would question things. But it would have been interesting if I would have gotten everybody to participate in this with me. I think it would have been a great bonding 40 days of like, how are you doing? You know what I mean? So it gives us something else to talk about, something else to do. And talk about all those things. I do think that I could see this in a working atmosphere being really cool, and people having moments of getting before they start their day and everybody's together, maybe in a conference room or it's your family at home or wherever. But I think it'd be really cool to just spend 10 minutes and go, how are we doing? I mean, because I think that you'd get a lot of laughter. I think you'd get a lot of emotional moments and break the ice of the morning or the day when you get things started. And I think it would be a cool thing and probably a pivotal thing with family and work and your career and like breaking the ice, so to speak, that you're all participating in this sacrifice or just participating in doing something for others within these 40 days that you usually don't do. That would be an interesting topic, how that would work in the workplace, how that works in the family, just having those conversations.
Yeah. I think that those conversations are important, and the actions that come out of those conversations are really important. You know, you talk about doing, you know, and I know of a lot of leaders and a lot of businesses that, you know, sometime during those 40 days of Lent, they might go serve a meal at a homeless shelter, or they might go, you know, do something else as part of their Lenten journey. And I think it's a wonderful thing when a leader can bring a group of people together, whether it's their team, whether it's all their employees, whoever it is, when they can bring people together under a common umbrella that says, here's why we're doing this. We're doing this to reflect on and to, I won't use the word celebrate because, you know, you're not supposed to celebrate in Lent, but to really reflect on and to bring people into what's going on in that journey, I think is extremely important, because I think it gives you that commonality of the group that says, okay, we're all in this together. You know, now we're all going to go serve a meal to the homeless shelter, or we're all going to do something else. Those kinds of experiences, when everybody comes together and shares that, I think is vital to the health of the organization.
Yeah, offering like an extension. There's these things that are happening because of what you're doing. That can even be, those will be like the cherry on the cherry on top. I was going to say something about, you brought something up that was really interesting. Randy, what were you going to say? And I'm going to remember this in a minute. There's something that Mike just said that knocked me out, but go ahead.
Well, I feel like the Lenten piece is a great metaphor and example of what can be done as individuals and also with groups, to your point, Steve, about, hey, what if we got together as a team and agreed to blah, blah, blah. And I think all of that is great. And I think it does happen a lot in organizations. A lot of community engagement work that's being done in organizations. You're seeing people volunteering to give up their Saturday mornings or whatever and go as a group from the company to do some good thing. And there's all kinds of wonderful benefits that occur from that kind of community engagement and such. I think that when it comes to what you give up, though, and how you give it up, that's why you give it up. What is the intent behind it?
Right.
We all know spiritual people that are exclusively performative spiritual people, right? They're gonna act like they're doing the right things, and they're probably going to make you see that they're doing the right things, demonstrate just how profoundly they're doing it. But the real power is when you really do make a bet and deal with yourself. And so I was just sitting there reflecting, what would be the thing that would be a beast to give up? And I will tell you that this would be a beast.
Absolutely.
So I have become one of those people now where I notice other people when their heads are in cell phones all the time. And I'm beginning to make judgments about those people, you know, where they can't be in a conversation with you for 2 minutes before they're picking up their phone and checking it out. It's just like,
while crossing the streets in New York.
Oh my.
Think about that. I mean, as a metaphor, think about it. There's plenty of streets you're crossing when you're not paying attention to anything.
You're not paying attention to anything. And the reason I get so frustrated by it is because I do it too.
Right.
It's, you know, it's not like I'm holier than that.
Right.
This thing is as evil to me as it is to them. But when you see people that are just egregious with it, you know, that just, they give zero craps about what is going on out there. It's just all right here. It drives me up a wall. But this is the idea I think that Lent is getting to, that it is about connecting you away, pulling you away from these habitual patterns and putting you into a place where you can be more aware, awake, and then presumably empathetic and compassionate and helpful and so forth.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting.
I remember.
Go ahead, Steve.
Mike, I'm sorry, I got it.
I mean, it's interesting, Randy, you make the comment, these spiritual people that, you know, of course, Jesus talks about the scribes and the Pharisees and how they're constantly putting on airs and getting the best seats at the banquet tables and all of those kinds of things. I would argue that those aren't spiritual people. I would argue that leaders who put themselves in that kind of frame that says it's all about them are missing the whole point of leadership. And you see this all over the spectrum, you know, politics, business, whatever. It's all over the spectrum of leaders that think that's what leadership is. And it's really not. The leadership is Benedict's idea of the 12 steps or the ladder of humility, and exercising those 12 steps of who you are as a leader and giving up to the fact that humility is the key component to successful leadership. You know, Lent, I think, especially gives us that time to say, this is how I'm going to really try and practice this idea of humility with my people, with my team, with my organization. and in my own life with my family, my spouse, all of those kinds of things where it's not all of a sudden about me anymore. And I think
Yes.
that's a real challenge from a leadership perspective for a lot of leaders.
Let me tell you some ways that you're reminded every day and you don't pay attention to maybe Lent, right? How many songs have been quoted with 40 days, 40 nights, or either it's in the chorus hook. Let me just say this: 40 Days and 40 Nights by Muddy Waters, 1956. Classic, right? Classic. Tim McGraw had a song with the same title, different song, 40 Days, 40 Nights. 40 by U2 in 1983 off the War album. 40 Days and 40 Nights by Buddy Guy. The blues version on Cadillac Records, probably the same version as Muddy, because they were together, obviously, back in the day. I'm looking online right now. There are so many records, and I've written so many songs, whether I'm mentioning the 40 Days or 40
Yep.
Nights
Yeah.
in my thought process, I'm there.
Yeah.
And so I've got them where I say it, but it's interesting as a songwriter how we're drawn to write that and how it can represent so much. And when you mention 40 Days and 40 Nights to me, it's a plethora of canvas the size of the sky that opens up with all the colors in the world to get ready to paint. I mean, it opens my imagination up like no other phrase ever does. Maybe next to the word love.
Yeah.
Those phrases are probably they're probably pretty potent.
It's an interesting time frame too, because 40 days speaks to the biological capacity of a human to live without food. And that's why, so Jesus fasted for 40 days, right? Out in the desert. So it's an interesting time. And then of course, Noah and the ark, the rain, 40 days. And in You and Tequila Make Me Crazy, that song.
Yeah. Yeah.
40 nights.
Yeah.
Great song.
There's just so much. I mean, it's a go-to that works every time. And like I said, as a songwriter, you'd be amazed at what happens to our imaginations. It just lends itself to a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, it shortcuts this period of time of struggle and want and need and absence.
But you want to relate to everybody you can. So think about that. That as much as it's a Bible symbolic 40 days, 40, whatever, how it's so that it's amazing how the world knows what it is.
Yeah.
The world knows what it is. It's like the word love. It's one of those phrases that everybody just gets, Yeah. It's amazing. Very powerful, actually,
I think the other fun thing about Lent is ending Lent, right? And we see this,
great.
in our Islamic friends, the same. They go through Ramadan, right? And they go through a period of enforced fasting. And I was with some college students, and we were finishing a seminar, and they were a little bit anxious and kind of itchy. And I was like, what are you guys going to do tonight? And they looked at me and their eyes got really white. They said, eat. And I said, what, you don't eat normally? He says, no, it's the end of Ramadan. So we're going to go and
We're going to
really, and there is, I guess, a feast that occurs at the end of Ramadan. But so we talked about that, and we talked about I was like, was it special foods or whatever? It can be anything, I guess. But the point is, it tastes really good.
Right.
When you haven't had it in a long time, if you've given up bourbon for Lent, that bourbon is going to be very nice when you come back around.
The other piece of Lent, and Randy, you mentioned it, Jesus 40 days in the desert.
Yes.
I think the other piece of Lent is that opportunity for quiet, that opportunity to step away. One of the things that I love to do during Lent is I find a book, and it's the whole idea of not only just reading the book, but reading it, reflecting on it, letting it wash over you. I mean, really diving into it and really trying to get, and a lot of times it's a spiritual book of some sort, but sometimes it's not. And I think that really giving yourself the time and the place to be able to do that during Lent, when maybe you don't make a conscious effort to do that the rest of the year, but really giving yourself that time. Or Steve, like you and Gwen, going to mass, one other time during the week. Ann does that as well. And that's really something that I think is really powerful, is allowing you that time in quiet space. And I think from a leadership perspective, consciously taking time for that quiet pause, that quiet reflection, I just had a conversation with a client the other day, and he was talking about, and we got into the conversation about his prayer life and how he does prayer in the morning and all that kind of stuff. And he was explaining this whole routine that he went through. And I said to him, I said, is there any silence in there? And he kind of gave me a puzzled look and said, well, not really. And I said, well, I don't know. It sounds to me like you're doing a lot of talking to God, but I'm not sure you're doing much listening.
Love it. What did he say?
He paused and he thought about it. He says, gee, maybe you're right. I think making sure that we're allowing that space, and Lent is a great time to do that, allowing that space to listen, to just sit with it. And sometimes when it's crazy and, life is going a million miles an hour, to be able to take time and just sit with it, I think is really, really important.
What's your term? Estancia?
Statio.
Statio.
That pause before we do something.
Statio. That's right.
Yeah.
I was thinking of a wine name. I can't help it. I don't know.
Statio does not come by the box.
Yeah, it does not. A voter box. Yeah. Or a leader or a whatever. Or a fifth. Interesting. But yeah, I mean, I sit here and you got me thinking, us going once more a week during the week, not much of a sacrifice compared to what my mom and dad did every day that wasn't a sacrifice.
Right.
So it feels a little cowardly, a little weak, but it's more than what we've been doing.
Right.
So we've been, we say our prayers every day. We split up. We get to it. We're on the road. We pray together.
Yep.
We'll say the rosary, the whole rosary together. We'll listen to say it with some folks online and all that, or do it ourselves. But, there's a power in that. I wish everybody could understand when you can find common ground like that in a relationship.
Yeah.
Or in the workplace or with my band. You find these common things that are just so important to keep you together and help you grow together. It's pretty special. And I just don't think that life moves forward in the way it could potentially be so wonderful if you don't engage there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, what's cool about that is that it's something, though. So for you and Gwen, it's something that you do together. Ann and I do it as well. It's something that we do together, and it's not something that, it's a contest to see who can do it better. I think a lot of times, yeah.
I'm always competing.
Yeah.
I know, I'm kidding.
But even from a leadership perspective, it's something that common ground is something that we do together. It's not something that we have to outperform somebody, and I think that's what's really important about that is really saying whatever it is that we're doing, that we're coming together and finding that common ground. Now it's not me, the leader up here, and you, everybody else down here. We're all here. We're all here.
I do think
common
a lot of things. Yeah, that's a very important statement there. I think, don't you agree, Randy? There are a lot of things in our life that we can get together and not compete, that we can literally see each other on the same field, lifting each other up together at the same time, climbing the same hill, exactly, going through the same rainstorm, no matter what it is. I think that those are the pivotal things that you do to take the time in any relationship or relationships that are a must. I think they're a must to be able to take those relationships to their potential.
Yes. And what that speaks to is this grounding power that we've talked about several times. So you were sharing ground with your team at that time. You're sharing the same sense of foundation. And when you do that, you create this potential that doesn't exist if you don't share it. If we don't share that ground, then my thought is that Mike's having thoughts and I'm having thoughts, and Steve's having thoughts and I'm having thoughts, but all of our thoughts are in these different buckets. But to the degree that we share ground together, I'm much more comfortable making the logical guess that we're actually on the same page or working together. And here's a sentence that I've come to love, and I've thought about it a great deal. And it basically says two things. First of all, if you have good ideas, a good idea only becomes a good idea to the degree that the good idea is shareable or is being shared or picked up. If you have a really good idea that nobody else thinks is a good idea, it's just a potential. It's there, but it's not actually doing anything. It's just a potential. If the good idea gets picked up, becomes sort of viral, okay, now the good idea is a thing. And so I was thinking about that that idea, and it came along that ideas are actually co-authored. A good idea, you have the good idea, but that good idea is co-authored by the culture that makes that good idea thinkable in the first place.
Yep.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So the culture establishes the potential of all ideation,
Nice.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this is where the shamans, this is where the priests, this is where the spiritual thinkers really help us, because they're the ones that are saying we have to set the table of a culture where magical, powerful, important, spectacular, infinite things can be considered. And without that, we never even think about it.
Nice.
Yeah. And
I think I need to go sit on.
and I would say that
I'm gonna go lay on the couch. I need to go lay on the couch right now after that one. That was good.
and
I need some things.
And I would say one other piece of that from a Benedictine perspective is that rather than using the term culture, I use the term community.
Yes.
And if we don't have that community, so two of the monk principles I talk about are community and excellence. You
Right.
can't have one and not the other. You have to have community in order to build that idea, like you said, Randy, that possibility to even have someone talk about it, ideate on it, put it into action, whatever it is. If you don't have the community, that excellence, that opportunity for excellence doesn't happen.
Right.
And that's
Well,
why
excellence
talk
only
about-
exists.
Yeah.
It can only exist in the context of community.
Exactly.
Right?
And
Yeah.
that's what's so important about the integration of these ideas, of these principles, is that they all work together. They're all interlocking. And if you don't have one of them working, then something's misaligned with the other ones. And so it's so important that we understand. And I think as we kind of wrap up this Lenten episode, if we understand that Lent is not just about giving something up. Lent is about sacrifice, however you think that is. Lent is about reflection. Lent is about quiet. Lent is about creating a rhythm that you're doing, and Lent is about finding that common ground where you're sharing it with others. I mean, that really, to me, is this whole idea, and that can be at home, that can be with your spouse, that can be at work with your team.
And think about how good you're going to feel at the end of the 40 days if you're able to be diligent and really pay attention to it and do the right things and stick to it. Also, you guys are reminding me right now, and I guess we'll wrap it up and end it, and maybe I'll send us packing here with this thought. This show, for me personally, has allowed me to feel exactly what you guys have been talking about in the last 10 minutes. I feel like there's these ideas, and we go through them, and before our show we talk about things and all that, but there's times when we really stumbled across some really nice nuggets that we get to spend some real time on, and I leave feeling really grateful, and I see myself using it on a daily basis. Like something I'm drawing from our time together has really fixed some things, and fixed things quicker than I would have ever imagined. Like sometimes I can spend days in my mind, how am I going to be able to approach this person? How am I going to be able to be this leader for this? How am I going to change this? How am I going to do all of this? And I swear, because of the conversations that we have, those answers come quicker, and I make better decisions that allow me to have time for other things that I need to be really spending more time on. So I credit both of you guys for that. And I'm really grateful that we have these times together, because it's really mattering for me.
Well, and it's all three of us. You know, we don't create the magic, just two of us. It's all three of us having that conversation. And I think that's a great segue to end this. By the way, folks, if you're listening, if you'd like to have all three of us come in and do this live with your team, with your folks, including Steve's amazing music, man, I'll tell you what, Resonance Live is even better than the podcast. So check us out at resonanceleader.com. Thanks for joining us today. Follow us on all the major platforms, and you can watch the video version on YouTube, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Later. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Resonance. Find us at resonanceleader.com.